And then from an MDF perspective, which is minimum defense frequency, meaning that if he's betting the size of the pot, you're supposed to call down with at least half the hands.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I've got a hand from online,
Okay.
Global Poker, 2-5, 500 cap.
Global Poker
And
is an
we're
open player pool. This is not playing with friends, right?
no,
Right.
it's an open player pool.
Yep.
So we're $470 effective,
Okay.
and we are in the low jack. We're playing six-handed, so that's first act. With ace of clubs, jack of spades, and we open to $11.
From under the gun.
Yes,
Okay.
and it folds to the button, who makes it 35.
Okay.
And the big blind and the small blind fold.
You raised to 12. How much did you raise to pre?
$11.
Oh, really small.
Yeah, that's pretty much standard though.
Right.
Between 2 and 3x.
And he makes it 35.
Yes.
And you're only 100 big blinds deep, right?
Yes, actually slightly under, but just about 100 big blinds deep.
So let me ask you this question, Nicholas, just before even we kick off the hand. Like, would you say that this is in the top part of your opening range from under the gun, or towards the middle, towards the bottom?
I would say it's towards the middle.
Towards the middle? Ace jack off?
Yeah, well, if I could just give some really quick background information, about the hand that kind of factored into my pre-flop decision. The two fish in the game were both to my direct left, and the big blind and small blind were both regulars as well as the button. So I figured that, I had been opening very frequently in this particular configuration in this game. So I figured that the button would be a little less polarized in his three betting range than normally, or maybe in a different configuration, just kind of with the game flow and the dynamics.
Wait a minute. Polarized in his three betting range, button versus under the gun. What is this, 2006? You're not supposed to be polarized. And the point that I'm making here is that this is, whether or not you're even supposed to open this has got to be one of the worst hands, I would say, to defend to. More than a 3x open, I would just fold. You could continue on here with ace queen off, ace queen suited plus, but I would just fold. It sounds to me like you called. Did you? And it went heads up? Yeah,
so I considered four betting as a bluff actually, maybe a small frequency partial. I did decide to make the call after I figured all three options were kind of on the table here.
So people are saying it's a borderline under the gun open, but it's certainly not a defend though, right? People in the live chat, but you call. Okay. Hero calls.
Yeah. Yep. That's part of why I wanted to call in this hand. Was I wanted to see, what would be your sort of approach with some of these decent but not, premium offsuit broadways. I know ace jack under the gun is, definitely sort of a borderline open, but
I would go so far as to say that I don't know how necessarily people are playing this online at 500, but follow my logic here. If the button is allowed to have some flats against an early position open with nobody in between, that would tend to lend me to think that his three betting range is kind of a little bit similar to one of the big blind three bets, which is sort of on the stronger side because they can call. Now somebody might say, well, that could also lend them to having some bluffs too, because they're allowed to call and they're sort of balancing off. I get that, but just when nobody calls in between and you just three bet, it just doesn't seem so incentivized to just three bet here with air all that much. So I would tend to play it a little bit cautiously. But okay, we'll go to the flop. So the pot's like 70 and change, right?
Yeah, it's $78.
Okay, and your head's up.
Yep.
All right.
So the flop comes 7 of diamonds, jack of clubs, 3 of hearts,
Okay.
and I check. And he continues for $29, so about third pot.
$29 into like 78, right?
Yep.
And I take it you call.
Yes. And that's my first question. Is this going to be sometimes a check raise?
Well, what I've seen here too is that you certainly are supposed to have some check raises with top pairs for protection / value. Because you have an ace in your hand here, I mean, obviously you need to protect a little bit more, with top pair with a jack. But if you had like queen, you start to see like hands like jack 10 with a backdoor check raise a little bit more than like ace jack. Maybe if you had jack 9 suited, if you defended there with a backdoor, 7-6 suited with a backdoor, something like that, or sort of protectionish types of check raises. I don't know if I would be doing this with ace jack. The positive part of having ace jack is that if you do get an ace and he catches up or uses it as a bluff card, right? You really have him. If he had ace king
Right,
or
that
ace
makes
queen,
sense.
something like that. But okay, so you call, the pot is 136, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And the turn comes the king of hearts.
Okay.
So we check.
Mm-hmm.
And he continues for $98.
So it's kind of awkward now because of the, you're only 100 big blinds effective, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if you call, the pot will be what, like 334. It looks like you've put in it looks like you'll have about a pot size bet left if you call, right? Like right around 300,
Right.
something like that. I mean, you have to call here again. Again, you have ace of clubs, jack of spades, and open from under the gun to 11, button 3 bets to 35. You call, board comes out 7 of diamonds, jack of clubs, 3 of hearts, check 25, which is about 1/3 call, pot's 136, turns the king of hearts, it puts a backdoor heart draw out there, and now he bets like 2/3, something like that. Seems like we might get into an MDF spot here on the river. So you check, he bets 98, and you call again?
Yes.
All right, so you just put in 196 on the turn, so 332-ish, something like that. 332, my math, and then the river, and then you've put in 98 and 29 is 117 plus 35 is like 150. Yeah, you have like a pot size bet left, right? Like just under a pot size bet.
Yeah, I have 310 left.
Okay.
And there's 330 in the pot.
Yep.
And the river comes a brick. It's a deuce of clubs.
Deuce of clubs. Some people in the live chat are saying that I don't see that you should fold the turn when the king comes. To 98. I mean, that's interesting. At what sizing do you start to fold off here on a king of hearts turn? If his range, is fairly tight. I mean, here's the thing. I guess he could be 3-betting off king queen here too. I was just thinking that you're blocking some of the ace king, right? But I guess he could have like king queen that starts like a backdoor type of draw. Here's the thing. I think that kings, the king X, the king is a little bit. It looks a little bit scarier than it actually is sometimes, as opposed to like an ace. If some people are starting to like 3-bet off of like ace X, it connects more. If an ace were to come on the turn and you had like king jack, I'd be more scared if you had called with king jack on jack 7-3 and the turn's an ace, as opposed to you having ace jack here and the turn's a king. So the river's a deuce of clubs, okay?
Mm-hmm. And yep. We check.
Okay.
And he thinks for a couple seconds, maybe like 5-10 seconds, and puts me all in.
For 310?
Yep.
So I mean, we're just going to say that it's a pot size bet just to make the math really easy, even though it's slightly less. You can look at this obviously two different ways. Both are correct. Pot odds, right? If you want to call, you're going to need to be good here 1 out of 3 times, right? You're getting 2-1. And then from an MDF perspective, which is minimum defense frequency, meaning that if he's betting the size of the pot, you're supposed to call down with at least half the hands here at the end to not make his bluff profitable. That's at pot. It's kind of simple when you think about MDF from your opponent's perspective. If the pot's $10, right, and I'm in position and I bet 10, I'm betting 10 to win 10. 1-1, it's 50%. Now, if I bet half the pot on the river, I'm betting 5 to win 10, right? I only need to be good 33% of the time, as opposed to me betting 10 into 10, which I need to be good 50% of the time. Because if I'm betting pot, I'm laying myself 1-1. If I'm betting half the pot, I'm laying myself basically 2-1 on a bluff. From your perspective, if he was betting half the size of the pot and he only needs to be good 33% of the time on his bluffs, you actually need to defend with the top 66% of your hands. That's how it works. Here, it's pot. So you have to defend with the top 50% of the hands that you get here with. Now, if you are folding off a large chunk of your range on the turn here, and this is where sort of people will misconstrue it, because if this is the sheer bottom part of your range for calling this action on flop and on turn, and we're even discussing maybe even folding on turn, I don't know if ace jack falls into that. If people are saying that it's almost a fold on the turn or considering folding on the turn. Now, the interesting thing though is that what hands do you have? Well, obviously you could have had like a set of jacks here, maybe a set of sevens, but I think the key here with the MDF though is that what is your range for calling the turn? Like you can't say, well, oh, I've got ace jack here, like, but I could have pocket 8s or pocket 9s because I would have opened and defended those pre-flop. Yeah, but you don't get to the river with 8s and 9s though, right?
Right.
You don't call the turn.
I think I could have a lot of like, let's say like 8-7 of hearts, or like, like a jack 10 of hearts, like some of those pair plus flush draws on the turn that would continue. And I would, basically be folding out most of those, I think, on the river.
Pair plus flush draws, like jack X of hearts?
Yeah, or maybe like, 8-7 of hearts or 7-6 of hearts, perhaps.
Are you opening 7-6 and 8-7 of hearts from under the gun?
I tend to be a little bit on the looser side. So yeah, usually I would, maybe like mixed frequencies depending on game flow and, what seat selection and whatnot.
Listen, if you want to go down this rabbit hole, you can figure it out on your own about what hands that you actually, what is actually in your range here for coming across, the turn. If you wanted to play in that manner, I think that you would have some, to a 1/3 pot size bet, you would have like, if you had, I don't think that you necessarily just 4-bet ace king off, right? It's probably just a call pre. So you're pretty much always check calling with ace king, right, on the flop. So you have ace king. King queen suited with a backdoor, probably with like 1/3. You probably have that. King jack suited. There's 2 combos of those. You've got a set of jacks and, maybe like a set of sevens. I don't think that you're necessarily like opening like 3-3. So those are some hands. Now you say like 7-8 of hearts, 6-7 of hearts, like jack 10 of hearts, queen jack of hearts. You'd have to sort of count down to figure it out. If you wanted to sort of play like this, it's probably pretty close. It's probably pretty close. I would tend to think that this is a little bit of an underbluff spot. I've been playing a lot of sort of Zoom and stuff to get a fair amount of hands in for my podcast because I haven't been playing live, and I can't believe how nitty some of these fucking guys play. Like at 1-2, like when they put money in, like they just always seem to have it. I see some triple barrel bluffs and stuff, but I just don't know if this falls into the 50% category of when you get here.
Right.
So what
Um,
ended up happening?
so I ended up thinking back to pre-flop and just kind of what I mentioned before, where the two regulars are in the small blind and big blind, and I thought maybe the button didn't want to flat and then get squeezed from one of the blinds and then have to play with like sort of like a capped range, um, or like a big pot with a capped range. So I thought he was a little bit more linear, so there's be some more bluffs in his range, maybe like a 10-9 or a queen 10, or maybe like an ace 10 suited or something like that. Maybe like an ace 5, ace 4 of hearts. And I looked at my the cards in my hand, and I didn't block hearts, and or yeah, I unblocked hearts,
Mm-hmm.
and I blocked ace king and king jack, pocket jacks, and pocket aces, and I did end up making the call, and I was good. He showed queen 10 of clubs.
Queen 10 of clubs. Well, that is one thing that we didn't discuss too about, and that's a good point, which is, you do have some decent properties, right, in your hand for blocking. With no heart in your hand, blocking aces, blocking ace king, blocking three jacks, something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing is very close. I do question a little bit to the 3.5x 3-bet just defend from under the gun. I don't know. I think that's starting to get out there a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.